As our culture becomes more inclusive, the seeming exclusivity of the church must be confronted by Christian leaders. In order to address the public perception that the church is a self-righteous and judgmental community, we must first of all be willing to admit that there is a basis for many people feeling this way. There are many instances when church leaders and Christians have not shown the love of Christ to the world and has used its understanding of Scripture to oppress, to marginalize, and to shun those who need to experience the love of God. There are so many instances of this throughout history and even in our contemporary world. Many seem to pride themselves in demonstrating what and who God is against. If the church is going to minister to a more inclusive culture, we must be honest about the dark parts of our history, and we must be willing to re-examine theological positions in light of Scripture and church history. When I think about many of the theological debates that I hear today, I am reminded that what mattered most for the first century church was not right belief, what we call orthodoxy, but what mattered most was right practice, orthopraxy. When Jesus says in John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the life, we tend to interpret that text in light of our preoccupation with orthodoxy, or right belief. But believing in the right doctrine about Jesus is most certainly not what Jesus had in mind. In all likelihood, he is underscoring the radical love ethic of his ministry, an ethic that manifested itself in ministering to the dispossessed, healing the brokenhearted, and a selfless, sacrificial love for others. No one comes to the Father except through the embodiment of that kind of commitment. We will continue to have tension and conflict as long as we focus on who has the right belief and the right doctrine. But Jesus did not subject people to creedal formulas. He didn't demand that people know, recite, or believe in the Nicene or the Apostles' Creed, for example. Jesus' requirements for discipleship were much more practical. Love the Lord your God and your neighbor as yourself. Wow. To love your neighbor as yourself, not just your Christian neighbor, your Baptist neighbor, your conservative or your liberal neighbor. Love your neighbor, all of your neighbors, gay or straight, Jew, Muslim, Hindu, or atheist. Love your neighbor. The Greco-Roman world that Jesus lived in was incredibly diverse, just like our own. And Jesus used the radical ethic of love to minister in his diverse environment. Perhaps we should do the same.